into Bengals Breakdown. I am your host, Stone Shields, and coming up on today's show, we're going to be breaking down the latest ESPN article that actually ranks all 32 NFL teams' rosters. It's got the projected lineups. These writers came together. They listed the top strength, the top weakness, and X factor, as well as a non-starter to watch. So they do this every year. We broke it down last year on the channel, and we're also going to break it down here today. And I think there's definitely some noteworthy takeaways that you can take away from what you had to see there up on ESPN. Very interesting to see where the Bengals, in the eyes of ESPN, fall in terms of their roster as it relates to all the other teams in the National Football League. Little heads up, I am doing a little solo producing here on today's show, so if you see me look down, whatever the case may be, just trying to do multiple things here at once as we progress. But before we get into that, if you are excited for Cincinnati Bengals football, I know I certainly am, show it by liking today's video for me right now, hitting that thumbs up icon. Really helps us out here at the channel. It allows us to bring more Bengals videos to you guys. Makes the bosses here at Chat Sports happy as well. So if you're excited for Cincinnati Bengals football, like today's video for me right now. Trying to get over 400 likes here on today's show. All right, so here is where Cincinnati sits in the eyes of ESPN. They are at that number 9 spot as it relates to their entire roster. And I think this is fair, to be completely honest with you. Obviously, you know how top-heavy this roster is with your superstars, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, hopefully Trey Hendrickson, right? But there's a lot of guys that need to prove themselves, right? And certainly guys that need to step up on the defensive side, and I totally get it. If you have one of the worst defenses in the NFL, which I think it was right there at the bottom last year, I mean, you can't really be at the top as far as your entire rosters go. So I think 9 really is honestly probably fair with where Cincinnati currently sits, and it's all about, trying to get the most out of the guys that they have. I personally would have Philly over Baltimore, but overall I'm not really too bent out of shape about this list here from ESPN and the Bengals being at number 9, again, the entirety of their roster. So as I mentioned at the top, there are several things that they broke down. One of the things was biggest strength, and they listed the wide receiver position as the biggest strength for the Cincinnati Bengals, and I get it, right? I mean, I personally would have said quarterback, but if you want to talk wide receivers, that's totally fine, right? Because the Bengals have the best wide receiver duo in the National Football League in T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, and depending on what you can do beyond them, you got Yoshi, of course, Jermaine Burton, Charlie Jones, Mike Gesicki kind of is a wide receiver. I don't have an issue, really, with Cincinnati, with Mike Clay actually saying wide receiver. This was kind of his rationale behind that. He said, wide receiver. I could have gone quarterback, but not many teams can match the Jamar Chase T. Higgins duo. Chase has been great since being drafted in 2021, but cemented himself as elite in 2024 with league highs and routes, targets, receptions, receiving yards, receiving touchdowns, and end zone targets. He's the first player in league history to reach both 1,700 receiving yards and 17 touchdown catches in a single season. Higgins has battled injuries but posted 73 receptions for 911 yards and 10 touchdowns in 12 games last season. Andre Yosavash and second-year Jermaine Burton provide good depth as well. So, again, I don't have any issues with that. I think wide receiver definitely is a strength of this football team. And as I mentioned, you still have guys beyond those core guys, right? And if they can go out and produce for you, look out. You might be borderline. I think you're already borderline unstoppable, but you might be literally unstoppable if you get great production from a guy like, Jermaine Burton, or even a guy like Jamar Chase, or even Andre Yosavash, who I think is going to have a phenomenal year and was really valuable for you last year as well. Rank the Bengals roster as it relates to the NFL, 1 to 32. I'm going to know what you guys think. Get that ranking for me down in the comment section of today's show. Then they went on to talk about their biggest weakness, and the biggest weakness for Cincinnati in the eyes of Mike Clay was their secondary. And I completely agree with this statement. Could you say, offensive line? Maybe, but I think secondary really is the number one thing that this team needs to be worried about and hopefully improves upon last year. Here's what Clay wrote, saying, secondary. Offensive line was a candidate, but secondary is a larger issue. Longtime slot man Mike Hilton and safety Von Bell were the top offseason departures, yet the team made no notable additions. That leaves Cam Taylor-Britt, Dax Hill, who tore his ACL in Week 5 last season, DJ Turner II, and Josh Newton as the top corner options. Geno Stone and Jordan Battle are the starting safeties. None of these players posted an above-average PFF grade in 2024. And we kind of talked about it. You spent all your time worrying about the receivers, as you should have, right? And then ultimately you didn't spend much time on your secondary, and you're kind of just running it back, hoping that Al Golden can wave a magic wand and hope that these guys can play better. This is what I have, in my opinion, as what it's going to look like. Is Dax Hill going to come in and play nickel? I don't know, but I think those three guys, the three faces that you see on your screen right now, are going to be the starters, but everybody is going to have to contribute. Josh Newton needs a massive second year. DJ Ivey, who I'm a fan of, needs to step up. Marco Wilson, who you brought back in free agency, also needs to be able to contribute as well. You're going to have to mix and match different guys in different spots. It's going to be something that Al Golden has to juggle throughout the entirety of the season, but I am certainly very worried about this position. And speaking of Al Golden, that is who ESPN listed as the biggest X factor. Here I completely agree. So just a little synopsis. Strength, I would have said quarterback. Weakness, I totally agree, secondary. And X factor, I totally agree, is Al Golden. You're kind of rolling the dice that we got a lot of the same guys coming back, but we got Al Golden here. I'm fired up about Al Golden. If I could have picked anyone to be the DC to replace Anarumo, it would have been Al Golden, but there is a ton on his plate, and even more so because you drafted a couple linebackers that he essentially handpicked. He's got a lot of pressure on him, and he certainly is the X factor for this football team going into 2025. Then a non-starter to know, I kind of thought this was interesting because it's my way of thinking that TJ Slayton's going to be starting. Right, I think it's going to be him and B.J. Hill as your starting defensive tackles. Again, you're going to need a rotation. All the guys will play. As we'll get into later with the ESPN starting lineup projection, they have Chris Jenkins as the starter, but I would be shocked if T.J. Slayton was not the guy out there first. He's your nose tackle. He's your big boy that you're going to look up there to stop the run and also provide some sort of pass rush from the interior. So this was a bit of a head-scratcher to me, but I guess we'll see. Maybe ESPN knows something that I do not. What do you think, though? TJ Slayton starting in week 1? Let me know. Type Y for yes or N for no. I think he is, but maybe ESPN, like I said, knows something we don't. Sound off for me in the comments of today's show. Second part of today's video, let's go through their projected roster for Cincinnati, or excuse me, their projected lineup, their starters for week 1 against the Cleveland Browns. Don't really need to spend any time talking about these two right here. Obviously, Joe Burrow is going to be your quarterback, and obviously Chase Brown is going to be your running back, barring injury. Don't have any issues with this either. The top 3, your receivers, Chase Higgins and Yoshi. Absolutely. Your 2 tight ends, Gesicki and Sample. It doesn't really get any more simple than that, and I don't really have an issue with any of that so far. I don't think any Bengals fans should have an issue with any of the 7 guys that we discussed about. They are going to be locked in, and they are going to be starting. No doubt about it. Now, this is where things get a little more dicey when you get to the offensive line here of this football team. Left tackle, Orlando Brown Jr. Yes, left guard, Cordell Volson. Obviously, he got benched a couple of times at the end of the year. He's played a lot of football for the Cincinnati Bengals. Hasn't been up to the standard that you would hope for when you are trying to protect Joe Burrow. I think the left guard is going to be Dylan Fairchild, your rookie out of Georgia. We don't know. We will see, but my prediction is definitely going to be Dylan Fairchild. And there at the right side, you got Lucas Patrick, and you certainly have Cody Ford there as well. It's going to be a competition. I hope Cody Ford is more your 6th guy, that swing guy. I don't think it's best case scenario if he's starting, but that is what ESPN has projected. So those guard spots aren't the names that I would pencil in myself. The other 3 certainly are. And then this was kind of going back to the Slayton head scratcher. I mean, Jenkins, he's flashed, right, in year 1, rookie out of Michigan last year. But I think TJ Slayton was brought here to start for this football team, and to me that was pretty clear. But, you know, ESPN clearly has a different viewpoint there on that. I think B.J. Hill certainly, after where things are at as far as him coming back with a new contract. And then your 2 edges, hopefully these guys are there, Hendrickson and Stewart. At this rate, I would be surprised if Stewart's ready to be a starter for you. I think it's probably going to be more of a Myles Murphy or Joseph Osai, so I kind of would disagree with that spot as well. I don't think he's ready. Even if he was with the team throughout the entirety of the offseason program and training camp, I still don't know if he's ready to go to be a starter opposite Trey Hendrickson. He's going to have opportunities to come in, assuming he finally will sign his contract at some point. But I think a different guy at that edge spot, whether it be Osai or Myles Murphy, probably makes more sense, in my opinion. And now for the linebackers, I totally agree with these 3. Logan Wilson, he's spearheading that room. Demetrius Knight, I'm so fired up about him. He signed his contract. He's going to be ready to go. I think he's really going to impress a lot of Bengals fans this season. And then Oren Burks, Super Bowl champion from Philadelphia, he's going to be your 3rd linebacker um, this year for the Cincinnati Bengals. And now let's get to the DBs. And don't have any issues here. Taylor Britt, Hill, Turner the second. You could argue Josh Newton over one of those guys, but they're all going to have to play. And, good news that Dax Hill is going to be ready full go for training camp. But, if something happens to, like, Dax Hill, for instance, again, like, the Bengals are really relying on him to be their best defensive back, and he's coming off a serious injury, so that's never an ideal situation. But your safeties, you opted not to go get any new ones. There's still some free agents currently, as of filming this video, that are out on the market that you have not shown any interest in. But Geno Stone and Jordan Battle looks like you're running it back with that spot. So kind of to recap, don't think Shamar Stewart's going to be starting. The guard spots, thinking those are going to be a little bit different as well. But for the most part, I think that's a pretty accurate list from ESPN. Grade ESPN's projected starting lineup for the Cincinnati Bengals. Get those grades for me in the comment section, A, B, C, D, or F.